So I've been on Android for 8 out of the 12 months this year, and it's no secret that the S23 Ultra might be the best smartphone of 2023, despite coming out in February. Now that the 15 Pro Max has been released, we have to discuss who is the better smartphone titan of 2023. If I'm gonna be honest, guys, I hate doing these comparisons at this time because the gap between the two is so far, because as soon as I record this, some people will say, oh, the S24 Ultra will be out soon. Then as soon as I start doing the S24 Ultra versus the 15 Pro Max, then people will be like, oh wow, you're comparing an iPhone that came out last year to the latest Samsung. Just wait till the 16 Pro Max gets released. But you know who will be here soon? Our sponsor, nobody. Let's start off with build quality. Titanium versus aluminum. Now, the S23 Ultra is built with stainless steel and aluminum, whereas the 15 Pro Max is built with titanium and aluminum. They both have a glass back, and I would say the only real difference between the two is the weight and the curves. I'll have the grams on the screen. It might not seem like much, but it's noticeable when you have both in hand, and I would say that the S23 Ultra kind of has a dense feeling to it. There's going to be an argument between titanium being more expensive, therefore meaning that it's more premium, but to be honest, they're both premium builds, and majority of people are going to slap on a case on these devices anyway that's going to be made out of plastic, so you won't even appreciate the actual build quality of the device. The last thing I want to mention is my friend said that Samsung phones look feminine, and I gave him the face I'm giving you guys right now. I can kind of see it from the lighter colors, how this can look feminine, but if you go to the deeper colors like the black or the onyx, whatever Samsung wants to call this, it doesn't look feminine to me. Even the white one honestly doesn't even look that feminine. I think it's more so just the lighter colors might seem like it's a feminine color, but to be honest, you guys let me know if I'm tripping down in the comments below. So the last thing I want to touch on is the curves when the phones rest in your hand. Notice how the S23 Ultra is a boxy shape and it kind of digs into my palm here, whereas the iPhone has always been curved and it kind of just rests within your palm. And I would say that the iPhone is more comfortable and less fatiguing to hold in my hand than the S23 Ultra, and that also comes into the lighter weight as well. Once again, this point might be a little bit irrelevant because if you slap on a case, it's most likely going to round things off anyway. So while we are on the outside of the device, if you were to look at the SIM card tray, you would notice that on the iPhone, it actually doesn't exist. And that's because this is a US model. So the US model does not support a physical SIM card tray, whereas the S23 Ultra does. The global variant of the iPhone has a SIM card, but just wanted to make note of the 35% US audience that I have. So the other nice upgrade the iPhone got this year was giving it a USB-C port, whereas Samsung has had the USB-C port for many years now. But the 15 Pro Max starts to flex its muscles a bit when it comes to the camera and video recording capabilities with said port. I'll get into that more into the camera section of the video, but the S23 Ultra does have fast charging. Even though Apple does have a lower wattage for its fast charging, it still charges plenty fast. Now, let's talk about cameras. If you don't care about cameras and just want the TLDR, I'll give it to you up front. Speaking generally, videos look better on iPhone, photos look better on Samsung. At the end of the day, it's a matter of preference, and you can't go wrong with either. You're welcome. So, most images and videos you're going to see are from my recent trip to the UAE. Ironically, the background is Dubai. This is not taken from me. This is Apple screensavers on Apple TV. Regardless, Samsung has come a long way. But I still have to give it over to the iPhone when it comes to video quality. This phone, meaning the 15 Pro Max, is really trying to be a video camera in your pocket, and the ability to plug in an external SSD and record log format, then do your post-processing, would leave some people debating whether this is a true camera system or not. For me, I just record 1080 half the time and hope autofocus does its job and call it a day. But hey, that's just me. Don't get me wrong, Samsung does have amazing video quality. In certain situations, I would actually say that it beats out the iPhone, but consistency is key here, and the iPhone delivers time and time again. So the Samsung camera does have 8K recording. I would say it's more of just a checkbox on a spec sheet rather than actual usability. I mean, you can use it, but I've used it probably 0.0 infinity% times. I rather have more refinement in the camera system than just simply having a higher resolution video. The 8K capabilities are there though. The photos is where Samsung starts to close the gap. It's a matter of preference, but the Samsung photos I would say are more predictable. Whenever I take a photo on the iPhone, I immediately view it and say, wow. And then I let the post-processing do its job and then I go, what the heck? The same can be said on Samsung, but it's not nearly as aggressive and photos come out more natural. Apple talked about being able to take normal photos and then turn them into portraits, but if I'm not mistaken, that feature is already on Samsung, if not coming to One UI 6. The biggest difference would be the zoom lenses. Samsung has 10x and the 15 Pro Max has 5x. Both zooms look great, and even when I zoom in up to 10x on the 15 Pro Max, it's still pretty much comparable to the 10x that's on the S23 Ultra. What I prefer on the 15 Pro Max is the steadiness when zoomed in and how the cameras aren't super obvious when switching between the two. There's more fluidity to it. That's the best way I can describe it. Samsung does have 100x zoom, but it's just like 8K recording. It's almost never used and it's more of a spec sheet checkoff. I know it might sound like I'm pulling Samsung down, but usability or usable features that I interact with on a daily basis are more important than just having a bunch of features for the sake of having them.
All right, so this is a quick camera and video test on the 15 Pro Max as well as the S23 Ultra. There is a bit of buzzing noise from the right-hand side, so you guys can see, or maybe you guys will be able to hear whether it is loud or not. I'm gonna go down here. I will say there are times where the iPhone camera is better, and then there are other times where the S23 Ultra camera is better. I guess it's really just coming down to where you are in the sun. So I would say right now, they're probably both pretty comparable. Like if you have good lighting, you're really not going to be going wrong with either one, but there are certain situations where the S23 Ultra is just better, and then there are other situations where the iPhone 15 Pro Max is better. So you guys let me know how it sounds and looks and make your decision off that. It's hot outside and I'm going back, so I don't get burnt to a crisp.
I'll sum it up similar to the TLDR at the beginning. When I'm on the S23 Ultra, I'm happy and content with the photos and videos that I get. When I'm on the 15 Pro Max, I'm content with the videos and photos that I take. And both deliver capable memories for when you hit that button, the subscribe button. Make the memories memorable on this channel. Let's talk about performance. World's first 3nm process with the A17 Pro versus the Snapdragon Gen 2 coined specific for Samsung. Or I should say, designed for Samsung. Anyway, people like to clown Android, but Snapdragon has also come a long way and has stepped up their performance. And in day-to-day performance, it's nearly identical between the two. Let's be honest, you're not really going to have a massive difference in performance when using both devices. For benchmark scores with CPU, Apple wins, obviously. But if you just check your mail, browse the web, check your social media, watch videos, play mobile games, I don't know how to think about the last one, but it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. Apple does have better ray tracing and the ability to play games. Not gonna lie, if you're gung-ho about playing AAA games on the iPhone, you probably already have a PS5 or Xbox Series X or S lying around in your house, so just play it there. Now, I don't want to take any credit from Apple, but I just don't see myself paying $60 for a AAA mobile game on a smartphone. Now, yes, I can plug it into an external display like a TV, AirPlay it, but I just think that the actual console experience or the PC experience is just vastly better. And when it comes to multiplayer, there's just simply more people on console and PC for those AAA games. I understand the mobile space is massive, very lucrative, but I just don't see myself and a lot of people ponying up $60 for a AAA game. It's nice that I can do it though. Now, if Apple was smart, they would license the A17 Pro to the Nintendo Switch Pro. But Nintendo's never gonna do that. Let's not kid ourselves. Okay, so we should talk about some credit over for Samsung, which is DeX, which can turn your phone into a computer-like system. I'm actually working on a video where I use DeX for a week only, and I would say if the iOS or the iPhone could turn into macOS when you plug it in via USB-C, better yet, Thunderbolt, that is when we've entered a new generation of smartphones, because these devices are so powerful that there's almost no excuse that they can't turn into a performant-like laptop whenever you plug it in via a cable. So I love flipping the phones. People get anxiety because of that. Anyway, let's talk about battery life. You can stretch them both if need be. I typically don't like battery tests on YouTube because 99% of them are running them purely off of Wi-Fi with no cellular connection, which impacts battery life a lot. It's a good reference if COVID were to happen again and we were stuck inside, but from my experience, the S23 Ultra has better battery life hands down. If you are worried about battery while you're connected to Wi-Fi all the time, chances are you're probably within the proximity of an outlet. So is battery life really an issue, especially with fast charging in these devices? I don't think so. Anyway, I last an actual day and a half with cellular using the S23 Ultra, whereas on the iPhone, it was pretty much done in a day. Now, it was a long day, don't get me wrong, but it was done by the day. So with battery life, with cellular, I gotta give it over to the S23 Ultra. Let's talk about the screens. They are both OLED screens, and I've gotta say, they get plenty bright. iPhone gets brighter outdoors, but I have no problems looking at the S23 Ultra outside. I typically have sunglasses on anyway if it's that bright outside, and the 1000 nit plus benefit isn't that useful at that point. Apple has the dynamic island, with Samsung just having a camera dot at the top. I actually like dynamic island, but I can live without it. It's almost like a cheat multitasking window, but if we're gonna talk about multitasking, we might as well crown Samsung because it can actually do multitasking with split view, having two apps open simultaneously on the same screen. Not to mention, we have the S Pen, which is handy in a multitude of ways, such as taking notes, having finer control in marking up a photo or document, taking photos without having to stretch out your fingers, or if you're like me and get nervous in meetings, you can just click away at the end of the pen, because it's a pen. You can draw with it, the list goes on. I love both screens, I really do, but the actual use and watching content, I gotta give it over to the S23 Ultra. I watch in landscape because I'm basically a boomer at this point, and the dynamic island and hole punch don't bother me at all. I know a lot of people like to talk about it, but when you're actually watching content, you don't really notice it at all because the phones are so long that they kind of just give you the black bars on the end, and that's actually where the dynamic island and that hole punch cutout is. Since these are premium devices, I also want to talk about the always-on display. iPhone, I've got to say, is the winner here. I know there is good lock and whatnot on Samsung, oh, rhymed, good lock, whatnot. That stuff is on Samsung, but the base feature set, always on display on iPhone is better and has me picking up my phone less, especially with the new addition with the standby mode that shows notifications as they come in. And I would say, an elegant way. I do love the video lock screen that you see on Samsung, but I also love the fact that on the always on display, you actually have your wallpaper at like this more subtle, very dim setting. And when you get a notification or tap on it, it brightens up. Android, it's just a black screen and you have very, very limited options on what you can actually customize here. So always on display, gotta give it over to Samsung. Now for a more general test. I'll show you guys the difference in the speaker and microphone, so take a listen.
But it's not when you start using it day to day. The best way to describe the iPhone 15 Pro series is that it's really just the iPhone 15 4. Here is the titanium, and I'm sure most of the internet has seen jerry-rig everything, pop a hole in the back with his thumbs. I don't know how strong his thumbs are, but I'm not trying to push that hard into the back of my phone that I've paid. I'm just going to leave it at this pressure. With that being said, there has been talks of, having the iPhone 15 Pro Max in your back pocket and it being a liability, but I really don't think it's that much of a concern. I've dropped this phone, red camera, some of the scratches and dings that I've gotten, as you can see here. With that being said, the claims of this being
Biometric is face only on the 15 Pro Max, whereas the S23 Ultra gives you a fingerprint reader inside the display. If you've never used Face ID, trust me, it's not the same as Face Unlock on Android. Now, the in-display fingerprint reader is good on the S23 Ultra. It's fast, responsive. Even with a screen protector, I have no problems at all. One thing I forgot to mention is the action button. Apple talked a lot about this during their event, but let's not kid ourselves, guys. Samsung has had this for a while, being able to remap the Bixby button or the lock button to whatever shortcut that you want. But it is nice that we do have it on the iPhone here, and we have the ability to open up shortcuts. But I would give it over to Samsung because in terms of the customization and what you can do, in terms of the apps and whatnot, it's just a more robust, refined system. So the last category I want to talk about is price, because I think price is probably one of the biggest factors when buying a smartphone nowadays. I'd say it's either number 1 or number 2 on someone's list. This might shock you, mainly the iPhone people. It's the same price, at least here in the States. Yes, this phone, this Android phone, costs the same as an iPhone. Now, in some countries, it's substantially more expensive between the two, most likely the Apple products. And Samsung is also known for having discounts and deals all the time. Discounts doesn't necessarily mean that the device is bad. Trust me, this is not a bad device. Retail price, the 15 Pro Max is $1,200. S23 Ultra is also $1,200 as well, but can be found elsewhere for cheaper. If you don't keep your phones, I highly suggest trading them in or selling them to offset the cost. You should also take advantage of carrier deals. Just don't get locked into any contracts you aren't willing to commit to, because this country is notorious for not committing to contracts. Shout out to Tinder. Don't sponsor me though. Anyway, it's time for the conclusion. Which is the better device? The 15 Pro Max or the S23 Ultra? I don't know why I did that backwards, and I don't know why I'm talking like this, but let's just go on with it. It comes down to this, just like most things in life, it depends. I know a lot of people hate that answer, but it's the most realistic one. Take a look at the stuff around you. Is it mainly Apple? If so, I don't know why you don't already have an iPhone, but in all seriousness, it's a toss-up between the two. They both trade blows, and I'm happy on either device. But if you see yourself acquiring more stuff in the Apple product stack, get the 15 Pro Max. If you don't particularly care or use Apple products, then you can actually go with either, but I'd choose the S23 Ultra. Just keep in mind that Apple products hold better resale value, so if that's another factor for you buying a smartphone, all the more reason to get the iPhone. If you enjoy freedom and customization and having your phone feel more personal, all the more reason to get the S23 Ultra. Now, if you're a person that swaps phone every single year, well, just have fun with the device. And why are you watching this video? But thanks for the watch time since you made it this far. With that being said, guys, I appreciate every single sub, like, and comment. And as always, much love. Can I juggle phones? Psych! Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm out. I'll have the grams up on the screen. It's Halloween season. Titanium being more expensive, therefore meaning that it's more premium. The global variant. Now, yes, I don't know why I'm doing this. The Samsung, I almost said something else. The Samsung, what the heck is that? Is really trying to be a video camera in your pocket, and I'm just like seeing things or something. Whenever I take a photo on my video, whenever I take a photo on the iPhone. So let's talk about performance. World's first 3-minute. Let's talk about performance. So let's talk about the screens here. They're both LED. I ought to get smacked for saying that. It does actual multitasking with split view. I always have like a good run and then I screw things up. Now let's talk about price.